Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our presentation on trends in leather for upholstery and wall panels. My name is Carrie Dillon. I am the Managing Director of the International Textile Alliance. We produce interwoven, which is what we're here at the show today, for our on behalf of our members. And so our presenter today is one of our new members, Jesse Meyer. He is the owner and principal parchment maker for Pergamena Parchments and Leather. Tell you a little bit about their company. Tanning leather has been in the Meyer family for over 470 years. Today, Pergamena continues to blend traditional tanning methods with modern innovations to carry on the Meyer tradition. Their dedication to superior craftsmanship is rooted in a sense of belonging to an ancient tradition, one they keep alive as they blend it with modern advancements and aesthetics. They hope to inspire that same sense of belonging in their customers, as well as the joy of appreciating an exquisitely crafted product. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Jesse Meyer.
Okay. Thank you, Carrie, for the introduction. Thank you, International Textile Alliance, for having us at this show. It's been a good experience so far, and we hope to come back. As Carrie said, we're new members. We're getting dropped into the deep end of the pool here, and we are getting a very quick education in how the textile and furniture industry work. So please take everything I might say about the industry with a grain of salt, because I'm still learning myself. So I titled my presentation here, Working Parchment and Leather, Working with Our Heads, Hearts, and Our Hands, after one of the previous presenters who had mentioned that as a saying, and I thought that was pretty apropos for what we do. As a family business, we feel personally invested in in this process and in keeping the business going. We are certainly doing a lot of work with our hands. It is a very labor-intensive process, and we are always trying to, we're learning as we go. So as Carrie said, we have been a tannery. Our family has been tanners for 470 years, so for a very long time. We hope to keep that up. So we've been working with leather for quite a while. However, most recently we have started working with parchment, and that works well. It's a nice overlap with our current industry, using the same raw material. So but it requires that we have to do a lot of learning about how parchment is produced and made as well, because it's actually a very ancient material, of which there's very few people that actually produce it anymore. So it's a lot of us having to figure it out as we go along. So, but this is a little bit of background into that, as well as the subtitle might say, Skilled Craft, Artistry, Tradition, and the Future of Sustainable Agriculture. We are still a tannery as well. So along with the parchment that we are producing and pioneering to an extent, we are trying to find our place in the wider leather industry. And as a very small family business, we are focusing on trying to fill niches and making very specialized products. So part of that definitely intersects with sustainable agriculture. So I'll cover a little bit of that. So let me see. Okay, so this is some of the earliest actual visible documentation that we have, or I should say a physical documentation of our family history. That is my great-grandfather, several times removed, Mihi Meyer, 1786 to 1716. 1786 to 1716 is when he was an active minister in what is now Germany. So we have that portrait, full-size portrait, hanging in our front hall in my parents' house. This is a slightly more recent documentation. This is my great great grandfather, Richard E. Meyer, who the company was named after for many years. This is him in his tannery down in North Bergen, New Jersey, which is where we were located for about 150 years. So we were in Germany up until about 1820, came over from there to Philadelphia for about 20 years, and then moved to North Bergen, New Jersey, about 1860 or so. And then we're there for about 150 years, and then moved up to our current location in the Hudson Valley, New York area. So we've been there for about 40 years. So, but this is my ancestor in his tannery on the work floor. Again, more recent, moving up to 1941. My grandfather's the tallest one in the white cap there. And to his right is his brother, and then to his right is their father. So, but that's my grandfather, Walter. And this is us or this is them in their old tannery down in North Bergen. So, more recent and still slightly older photo. That's my grandfather, my next younger brother, myself, and then my father. So that's 3 generations of the Meyer family. And then most recent, this is myself, my dad, Carl, and then my brother, Stephen, who's here with me at the show. So that brings you up to date. This is a quick overview picture of what our facility looks like as a tannery. So I'm sure a lot of interior designers may have some idea of what happens in order to make a nice piece of leather or a nice piece of parchment that goes on a piece of furniture. But they probably don't know all the gory details, and it's certainly not my wish to gross anybody out. So I'll try to just gloss over some of this stuff. But our facility is based here in the United States, which is very unusual nowadays for somebody producing leather. Most of that industry has left the United States and did so, probably 40 or 50 years ago. Labor costs and regulations make it so that it's much cheaper for people to do business overseas. Along with the leather, parchment, rawhide, most hides they all have to start out as a rawhide first. You can produce something with them at that point, or you could continue on and turn it into leather. Every culture really has some sort of a history of working with animal hides. And this is I believe a village up in northern Canada somewhere. So part of the Inuit native population, stretching some very large caribou hides. So this is what our current operation looks like. These are some of the cow hides that we received in. We offer what's called a tandem return service, traceable leather, also contract tanning. So farmers will bring us their hides, and then we will tan them, mark those and tan them, and then give them back to them. So part of our attempt to be sustainable is to help people know exactly where their raw material is from, so that they can have some peace of mind knowing that it was tanned properly and that it was tanned here. That looks pretty gross, but that is a deer skin that's been salted and dried. And I show this partly to show what the raw material looks like compared to what the finished product can look like. So it's quite a transformation that it undergoes to get from that into an object that can be, that is very, very beautiful. So we collect animal hides, we salt and preserve them, keep them at our facility until we have enough in order to put into a large tanning drum and tan. So the flesh has to be removed from the inside of the hide. The hair has to be removed. This would be the same process, whether it be parchment or leather. So once all of that dirty work is done, the hides get into the state where they're still raw, but they're ready to either tan or to stretch and dry and turn into parchment. So, and these are parchment drying frames, of which we have one over here to show for an example. The rawhide, the parchment, after it's been cleaned and stretched under tension, this is what it looks like. We also have a tool here. This is referred to as a moon knife or a lunellum, so old that it's actually, it takes its name from Latin for moon knife. And this is a tool that we use to scrape the hides because they are flexible. So the surface of the skin will bend. So the surface of the blade has to be able to bend too, to be able to correspond with that. The hides are stretched, scraped to wring out excess water, dried under tension, and then they're often scraped afterwards after they're dry in order to shave them down and make them thin and workable. So, and these are examples of very old equipment that was in use, 1,500 years ago. So we have resurrected this craft, and there's very few people left in the United States, if any, that actually do this or know how it's done. So these are examples here on screen of hides that are stretched and dried. They can be challenging to find clean material. Sometimes they have holes in it. Sometimes you have to work around it. So, but this is how the hides are stretched. When they're wet, they get stretched in the frame and then shaved using the lunellum I mentioned. And then just some examples of what the surface of the parchment can look like. We're focusing specifically on parchment at the moment. And you can have an awful lot of natural variation. It is a natural material. No two skins look exactly the same. Unlike leather, where the hide is tanned, so it gives it a brown undertone, and then you also are able to dye it and to emboss it if necessary, put finishes on it. That makes for a very consistent raw material. The challenge of parchment, but also the beauty, is that each piece is unique. That can make our job difficult. It's a bit of a double-edged sword that people like how one piece of parchment looks, but to try to find something else that matches that can be challenging, but that's part of the job. Another example of some of the subtle yet very prominent grain character that you can see on some hides. This is a close-up detail of a goat skin. Goat and sheepskin tend to be the hides used most often for interior design. So we handle a lot of those. Moving over to tanning, for instance, or for the moment, these are examples of the cowhide that we produce. And we do veg tanning, which is also something that is not the majority of leather produced in the world these days. It's most of it, probably 90% of the leather produced around the world is chrome tan. Maybe 10% is veg tan, but there are other types of tanning processes that could be in that 10%. But veg tan is what we do. It is a very old, very traditional type of tannage, and we figured that in keeping with our company and our tradition, we would try to focus on that. Plus, we would prefer to just be able to stay away from chrome tan hides altogether, because that invites unnecessary scrutiny or regulation, and that makes our job a lot more difficult. Not that it shouldn't be scrutinized, but we figure just working with vegetable tannins and extracts is a much safer and cleaner way to produce leather. So after the hides are tanned in a drum for several days, they come out. They have to be wrung out, basically, and dried. So this is a machine that wrings out excess water after the skins have been tanned. Then they have to be stretched. They go up on these stretching frames that we have here. We clip them up until they're dry. Try to keep them flat. Here are some examples of the goat skins that we do also. We tan cow sides in particular, goat, sometimes calf, sometimes deer skin. So we do a little bit of everything. Once the hides are tanned, they will come out, they'll be dried. They have to get split to a uniform thickness, and then we will dye them and then finish them. The veg tan and our process make for some very intense, very vivid, deep colors, which is great. After they're dried, they go back up on the stretching frames, and then once they come down, they have to be softened. We have a very old machine, a staking machine, which not really OSHA approved anymore. They've got lots of other machines that do this job, but we still use ours, and it's still in operation. The last patent date on that machine is 1898. So they don't build them like that anymore. Close up of some of the goat leather that we produce. It's our British tan color, although we can do pretty much any color. And some examples of items made out of our leathers. These specifically are sustainable leathers. which is we received these hides from a particular farm, tanned them, and then sent them back to that same farm to make leather goods out of. So moving back over to parchment for a minute, these are some examples of what the finished material can look like, what capabilities it has, and what possibilities there are. We work very closely with a lot of people when working with parchment because it is a challenging material to work with that not many people know too much about. So we're more than happy to offer guidance. We have a stable of artisans, craftspeople that we work with that are excellent at applying the material. So it is a bit of a lost art as well as making the parchment. So, but the parchment specifically is used for furniture surfaces, mostly on case goods. So cabinet doors, desktops, tables, conference tables, and wall surfaces, interior wall surfaces as well. So this is a project that we did several years ago, one of our first large interior commissions at the Park Hyatt in Shanghai, which at the time it was built was the tallest hotel in the world. That is, I think, 144 panels of goatskin parchment all stacked on top of each other. So, and here are some examples of the parchment on case goods. So this is a credenza with our natural goatskin parchment. So this is a set of bedside tables that we supplied the material to recently, which I thought turned out very nice. And it's an example of the customizability of the parchment and how we can pretty much dye it to almost any shade. So, and some other examples of interior surfaces, wall surfaces. The parchment, when it's undyed, has a very nice sort of warm undertone, honey undertone. But and here's another large room interior. It's also good for accessories, small tabletop items. This is some boxes with our sheepskin parchment. Another bedside table with our goatskin. So in closing though, I realize that there are a lot of tanneries represented here at the ITA at this interwoven exhibit, and I'm certainly not about to shame any of those guys about processes, but when it comes to sustainability, it is something that is becoming more and more of an issue to consumers. You know, first there was maybe textiles and then food, and naturally it will extend to other subjects such as leather. People want to know where their material comes from. They want to know that it's being produced responsibly and sustainably. So we are doing our small part in trying to produce sustainable materials in terms of our tandem return and traceable leather, for example, which is showing that we can produce the leather here. The United States has a good amount of rangeland where animals are raised. Here's an example of something of a solution that somebody suggested, which is take a lot of the cropland around the United States, let it lie fallow for a season, and then rotationally graze livestock on top of that in order to help with carbon sequestration. So we work with farms that specialize in that type of farming method, sustainable agriculture, sustainable farming. Some farms that are carbon negative even. So, and we make it a point to try to seek them out as they seek us out so that we can work closely with them. Again, it's a way for us to be able to differentiate ourselves and to highlight our efforts at sustainability. So, and it is something that is important, you know, and again, trends, this is something that is important to the consumer, and it's becoming more and more important. To the point where there are very large companies that are taking an interest in this and making this a priority for them. So, and this last one, this is sort of a cropped image here, but it includes some grazed land raised in, I think this is in Brazil. And the issue here was whether it's possible to sustainably raise cattle and create, create beef and have the hide as a byproduct and do so without worrying about, devastating the Amazon rainforest. And I think this particular issue or this particular article was highlighting how difficult it is sometimes to certify and regulate how these animals are raised. So, but I included that ad on the top because it just so happened that in the article, when I pulled this up, it had that image of that little circle of material being held with the tweezers there, and that is mushroom leather. We've actually had people come to us and ask us if we can assist with producing leather made out of mushrooms. So at least they refer to it as leather. And what that is it's basically the root structure of mushroom that's grown into sheets, and then it's basically embossed, and it still has to be sort of chemically tanned, but just a juxtaposition of the efforts that are being made to try to produce or move beyond leather in order to try to make for a more sustainable end product. So we hope that we are able to do a good enough job with producing our leather so that people can have some peace of mind and stick with the real thing. So, and right, here's just one last, Timberland and the Savory Institute, which is a company that specializes in certifying rotational grazing to try to help with carbon negative footprints, and regenerative agriculture is how they describe this. So we have worked with them in the past as well. So, and that's the end of my lecture. Yes. Yes. Right. So very good question. It is challenging. The people that we supply this material to, I mean, this is one of the stable of products that they work with, along with, say, shagreen leather, certainly straw marquetry, eggshell lacquer. I mean, any number of things. Selenite. It is definitely a highly skilled. It's a difficult skill to master. So this material, while it is very strong, it is also very reactive to changes in humidity and environment. So if it's too wet or too dry, it will warp or shrink. And that can be a challenge in order to be able to glue it down to a surface and properly laminate it. So you have to know exactly what you're doing, or else you could have a very expensive mistake on your hands. So, but that's not to discourage people from doing it. Like I said, we work with a lot of people that do that. And we have a lot of experience in playing around with this stuff ourselves, so we can also offer a lot of advice. So,
what's laminated and stable?
A laminated table. I mean, it would probably be on MDF, and then use something like polyvinyl acetate glue in order to apply it down to a surface. So.
And the hides for the farmers, and then you take them back to them. Do they just sell that?
Sometimes, yeah. So, I mean, farming can be a very, it can be a financially straining occupation these days. So any opportunity for a farmer to make a little extra money and get a little extra return is welcome. So one of the things that people in the leather industry like to highlight to folks who are worried about, this contribution to climate change is that this is not a new virgin material that we are producing here. Leather is a byproduct of the meat industry. So, and as such, farmers will have those hides as leftover from their livestock. If they are able to take that hide and turn that into a value-added product, and then be able to either make goods out of that themselves, usually leather goods, or if they can sell it as a raw material and have a story attached to it, then that makes it that much more of a potential profit center for them. So, and we do work with some farms that are very well known in the industry, and so they have provided those hides to other customers and have that brand and story attached as well. So. Yes. So the difference between parchment and leather is parchment is still technically raw. So it's untanned. And by tanning, I mean chemically rendered imputrescible to rot. So what that means is that it will, it's been chemically altered. The collagen fibers within a hide have been chemically altered to make it so that it won't go bad. It can withstand high temperatures, low temperatures. It can withstand getting wet for extended periods of time. Not that you want to do that to leather, but it makes for much stronger material. It makes it stretchy, spongy, flexible. Parchment doesn't really allow for any of that. Parchment, when it's stretched and dried, it is basically like a sheet good. If it gets too hot, it will cook. If it gets wet, it will get stretchy again, and it will eventually go bad. But if it's kept in dry and stable humidity environments, it can basically last forever. I mean, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Magna Carta, the Declaration of Independence, those are all done on parchment. The Dead Sea Scrolls, the Magna Carta, the Declaration of Independence. No, not necessarily. That's a good question, but oftentimes these are going on pieces of furniture, which are in turn going into humidity controlled, residential environments, sealed environments. Oftentimes when a piece of parchment goes on a panel into a piece of furniture, they will put a finish on it. So usually it's, 95% of the time, it's going to be like a lacquer finish, spray lacquer finish, or wax. And that will definitely help to seal it against changes in humidity. So. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Yeah, please.